Hi guys, so if you got a 2012 Chevy Equinox all-wheel drive V6, that's important, not the four-cylinder, and you have a intermediate axle shaft go bad or intermediate axle shaft bearing go bad, there's not a lot of information out there on what to do, how to do it, or even the parts. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of information on that today, since I haven't seen anything online about it. So I'll put a link in the video on what I found. It started out with just a little bit of a noise, clunking noise. Thought it was a stabilizer link. I ended up loading the suspension and getting it in the air, and I did have one that was bad. While I was replacing these, I had to put a little pressure on the drive shaft, and when I did, I found that the drive shaft was flopping around at the backside where it connects to an intermediate shaft. It then goes through a tube that you can't really see into the transfer case. So when I found that was sloppy, you'll see that in the video where I wobble it around. I was trying to figure out what to do, and it was kind of tough, not a lot of good information. You can see there's the end of that tube now, where the intermediate shaft goes into the drive axle, or to the transfer case. I'll move the light around so you can see in there a little bit. When I pulled the CV shaft out, the intermediate shaft stayed with it, so that's kind of good. And inside that tube was all the bearings and all the little busted up pieces and things like that. So in any case, it's not too bad of a job, and I'll kind of show you a little bit. I'm about halfway done with it. So of course you'll see I took off the caliper first, just kind of hung it off to the side. I already had the stabilizer link out. You got to remove that, it's kind of in the way. I need to move the knuckle, so I took the ball joint off, or I'm sorry, the tie rod end, and I noticed when I did that and was able to release it take the two bolts out of the strut, this moved over and it had a ripped boot in it, so I decided I'm just going to have to replace that anyway. So I removed the ball joint and took the knuckle, there's the knuckle, out, just because it gets it out of the way. It gives you so much more clearance, and it's not really hard to get out of there. And then of course there's nothing really left holding the strut, so I pulled the strut out too, just so I can have a lot of room, because I wasn't sure what I was going to do here. Do I have to unbolt all this stuff here? And you'll see that there's some bolts removed here. You don't really have to take those out. I thought I did. I thought I was going to have to take this bracket out there, so that I had to pull the whole tube out, but you don't have to pull that whole tube. There's a bunch of bolts that hold it. There's like one here, one on top, one underneath, one inside, and these two. There's so many bolts holding it. I realized what it does is kind of brace the whole end of the transaxle, so you don't want to remove that if you don't have to. The dealer will tell you got to remove the transfer case to do this job, but it doesn't look like you do. But the issue was, part of the bad bearing was the race part was stuck in here. So I had to go rent a bearing remover to get that out of there. It doesn't quite fit very well, but it's not pressed into this side. It's actually pressed on the axle side, so it wasn't too bad to come out of there. Then I just cleaned the tube up. I got to replace those couple of bolts, and I'm ready to slide everything back in once I get the new bearing. With the four-cylinder model, if you do any research while you're looking for your six-cylinder parts, they sell this drive axle as an assembly. It's called an intermediate shaft, and it comes with the bracket and the bearing on it. The V6 model doesn't really do that. So what I ended up doing was finding the bearing. I had to go to the dealer. There was no part store in the area that could help me. The bearing is pressed onto this side right here. And all that was left when I pulled this assembly out was this piece here. Just this race was stuck right here, so I had to just knock that out of there. I just put it in a vise through it with a rag, and I used a 3-jaw puller, and I was able to pull that off of there. This was the race that was stuck in the tube on the car side, and it wasn't that bad. Like I said, I used a puller, just kind of wedged in there, and it came off. This is what I ended up using. This piece here, this is a axle bearing removing kit, rented at AutoZone, and the smallest one here I was able to kind of wedge inside, turn it sideways. I couldn't get it all the way sideways because the tube is actually smaller once you farther you go in, but I was able to kind of get it wedged in there, and used it in combination with a slide hammer that you can rent from AutoZone with it, and I was able to just take a couple whacks on it and it came right out. So those two parts are probably essential to kind of get this done. Nothing was actually as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then the dealer was able to help me understand what this was. It took them a while too, because the information is pretty sketchy when it comes to the 6-cylinder all-wheel drive model when it comes to this intermediate shaft, because it's actually part of the 4-wheel drive transfer case. So but again, when I pulled this out, I just grabbed that shaft when I was ready to pull it out, and I pulled that, and all of this came with it. And this, like I said, this was all that was left on it. This stayed in there, and I just took all the bits and pieces and balls and parts that just kind of fell out. But this bearing assembly come with all this here. It'll be in one piece, but I think there's a couple other pieces. There's a lock washer or a snap ring that goes on either side of the bearing here, and there's a large snap ring, this one here, that once you slide the axle into, it goes on the outside of this bearing, and I think it just kind of holds it in, kind of holds your shaft in there. That's why this all came out as in one piece, I think, because just none of this was connected anymore. But ordered a bearing. It's like $90 from the dealer. It'll be in a couple of days. The bearing, they say, has to be pressed onto this shaft, not the car side. So again, that's why it was easy to get this piece out. Have to use a press, which I will, to put the bearing on here with the couple snap rings, slide it in, and then just reassemble it. So if you find yourself like I did, having trouble finding information on the LT all-wheel drive 3-liter 6-cylinder models only, that's kind of how I had to do it. Not as bad as it looks. You know, pulling that strut and knuckle off isn't bad. The hardest part of doing that anytime is that ball joint, and because my ball joint was kind of damaged anyway, I used a destroyer bar pickle fork to loosen it up to get it out of there, but it wasn't too bad. Once you get that thing swung out of the way, you can whack on it with a hammer a couple of times. But that's really it. So I hope this video helps. I'll try to make another video of the install, putting the bearing on that shaft and putting it back together. It's not going to be too awful bad, and I'll also put a link in for how I found what this was. So hope that helps. Leave some comments. Thanks a lot.